I've spent over $100,000 learning lessons that nobody told me about before I started my kids' enrichment business. Today, I'm going to tell you those lessons, what they were, what they cost me, exactly what I do different if I could start over again today. But I'm also going to tell you exactly what I do the same because not everything is a mistake. Some of the things I did right in the beginning are the reason why less than 3 years into my business, we have over 75 partnerships per year. Some of those decisions were the reason that we do serve over 1,300 students per year, and we've grown substantially and exponentially every year since we've launched. Some things I would do again, and I'm also going to highlight what those most important choices that we made early were. The first mistake I made is that I grew faster than the demand pulled for the services. So, specifically, early in our growth phase, we pushed into schools aggressively. I thought that if we were able to just get in front of parents, if we could just get the partnerships established, that everything else would flow from that. If we could just get the programs established, even in as many parks and recreation departments as possible, that we would be smooth sailing from there. Because based on the success that we had in our first year, I thought it was a no-brainer. As soon as we're in a place, the enrollment comes and it's great. I learned that wasn't the case. An initiative that I started is that I had my team push into schools rather than how we had originally grown, which is parents, students, staff coming to us and pulling us there. We started pushing when what worked before was people genuinely showing that, hey, we want you to come here as well. What that cost? Well, before I get to the cost, I'll tell what exactly that ended up playing out as. So in the summer, did a super aggressive push into as many partnership sites as possible. And then when fall came, enrollment in most of those sites were lackluster. Most didn't hit minimum. And what we found is that some schools have a culture of enrichment, meaning they have processes and people in place, communication channels, so that the information goes out to their community effectively, often in a timely fashion. They have a culture of great communication between whoever organizes programs and the families, whether that's a lead of a PTO or a coordinator at the school or the office manager or the principal or a volunteer, whoever that person is, possibly that person leads their school newsletter or something like that. That person, when they are at a school, it goes much better. But when there isn't that person, well, one inclination that there isn't a person is that school isn't reaching out. No one from that school reaches out. If there's not a person in that role, then the pull might not be there in the first place, even if parents and their children want those programs. And we've had that as well. People come to us, hey, we love this camp. We want to be in your after school program during the school year. They give us the contact information. We try to reach out and it doesn't work out because there's no one there that owns that process and they don't want to add the logistical complexity that comes with an external provider on their campus. By pushing into these places, we did not know what communication was going to look like. And a lot of those new places, although they approved our partnership and they really liked it, the idea of it, they did not have that culture. So it came with a lot of pestering and reminding. Oh, not pestering, came with a lot of reminding and a lot of emails and a lot of calls to get the flyers out, to get the word out. And even when that did happen, it still didn't equate to the popularity and participation in our programs that we are used to seeing. Sometimes it's like the chicken or the egg. You can grow into a place before demand has increased accordingly. So yeah, that was a huge mistake. And what did that end up costing us? So much time. We spent a lot of time establishing these partnerships, planning for these partnerships, purchasing materials to lead the programs at these different places, training, hiring instructors, building our schedule out for the year based on these partnerships, assuming that everything would look like it had with our original list. And we had to do a lot of backtracking. We had to break it all down and then build it up again based on where the demand actually was and where we could reach our minimum enrollment for our programs and have a sustainable school year. So it was a big push of effort to create all of this, and then an even bigger sustained effort to correct what we've done. And that was on me. I wanted to grow, and I made an assumption, I made a bet, and it did not work out. What I would do different, one, I would take the lesson, which is the best performance sites in our network all have something in common. They came to us. A school reached out to us. A parent heard about us, reached out to us, or passed our information along to maybe their PTO lead or whoever that did reach out, or maybe the parent reached out. Maybe we had a few, but there was a pull. Someone saw our program, someone experienced our program, and they said, hey, we want more and we want it here. So when demand pulls you somewhere, the enrollment numbers are higher. Enrollment follows where demand pulls you. Seems like a no-brainer, but now it does in hindsight. And maybe it might be obvious to some of you out there. But yeah, for those who may not have thought of that, I would recommend avoiding that mistake. What I would do differently, I would use AI tactfully to look at trends for my best performing sites and programs. What works there? What are the characteristics of these programs? Where are they located? What are the age ranges? What programs do I have that perform the best, whether it's topic? And then also, what are the other factors in informing or correlating with better outcomes? Is it the time of year? Is it the age range served? Is it the grade served? Is it the day of the week that the program is offered? Is it the time of day? The length of the program, the format? Is it the F school program versus my workshop basis versus the camps? What is it? I would look at the price point, what pricing produces the best outcomes. And from there, I would create an avatar of the ideal partner profile. I would then look at, in my community, where are additional partners that meet that profile? And I would try to establish partnerships with them. Now, learning the lesson, I wouldn't push into these programs, but I would have them on my list. And if there are ever participants in my other programs that are associated with those places, or if they're going to be somewhere that I'm going to be, a community event, I would introduce myself, but I would just make myself known to those places and see what different programs they're offering right now. If they offer my type of programs, I would start doing more research and seeing where we could align and where my youth enrichment programs could be of benefit to their community. Another thing I would do is I would create the avatar of the best performing programs that I offer. This would be the program topic, which one does the best, or two. The best performing program, if, I don't know, magician is like my intro to card tricks 101 on Thursdays at 3:45 to 4:45 at a church venue in a residential neighborhood with the average income of this or that. That's the avatar of like my best performing program. Okay, cool. How do I duplicate that to the extent possible? Well, do my church venue programs perform exceedingly and abundantly well? Okay, I could try to expand that. Is it my programs that have kids of a certain age range as they become most interested in magic tricks at that time? My programs that appeal to upper elementary or middle school kids? Like, what are those programs? Is it this, my card tricks program performs the best versus the other ones? Okay, let me double down on that. What is it about the card trick program that kids love so much or parents love to enroll their kids in so much? Let's do some interviewing of customers and see where the interest comes from. It might be that it could be the cards or it could be something else about that program. So we want to explore first and then double down on the specific components that make that a more attractive offer. And then there's also some exploration that can be done on the opposite end of that. Wow, this type of program is my lowest performing no matter where it's at. What's happening in that program? If you're not teaching, it might be time to observe it. If you are, fantastic. You can see what kids' experiences are in real time and what the perception of their parents are in real time as well as they pick them up at the end of the program. So yeah, that interviewing, surveying, those informal check-ins that can really help you figure out if there's that asymmetry in demand for your own services, what could be influencing that so that you can change whatever's not working and double down on whatever is working. What I would do the same here is I would still make it easy for people to find us. You don't need a massive marketing kit. You don't need the perfect Google SEO that's always changing anyway. You can only be but so optimized. You don't need a huge bring us to your school campaign. I've tried so many different iterations of that. I've tried the kits, like a new partner kit, an incentive if you refer us to this place and it works out. Your kid can participate for free. Just those different types of things. And they really don't work. The motivation is best when it's just organic. It doesn't really come with, oh, to recognize you for doing this, then we'll do this for you. I just have found that it's not very motivating, even if the thank you token of appreciation is a program that's worth multiple $100s. If they want you there and they really appreciate what you're offering, that in and of itself is enough of a motivator to refer you. So I would make it easy for people to refer us. Make sure on your website that some contact information is there, that if a parent passes that along, someone from whatever partnership site can easily look, see your email or your phone number, and they'll be able to reach out to you. Just make sure that is prominently displayed, really easy to find. And sometimes we'll think, oh, well, it's on this page, it's easy to find. Make sure it's in multiple places. People don't automatically know where to go to find certain information as well as we would think, or as well as we are able to do that because we know our websites, we know where to find what. Other people don't. It needs to be clear. It needs to be stated early and in multiple places. So do you have your contact information somewhere on your homepage? And if not, that's an easy change to make. It could be a simple line, 1-hour program at your school. Here's what you do. Email us here and we'll reach out. Something actionable you can take from this is this week you can pull your enrollment data from your most recent calendar year. You can look at your top performing site, top 3, top 5 sites. Look at your top and your bottom performing sites. What are the correlations? What's different? What's the same? And start to develop data around those trends. And if you don't have that data yet, then right now is a great time to start tracking that. You can start tracking it, track your enrollment count, track the days of the programs, the times, the topics, the venue type, zip code, all of that information as much as possible, because your future self will thank you when you're able to then analyze and deduce those trends. All right, so mistake number 2 was not analyzing my data early enough. So this is related to mistake number 1, where I pushed into sites instead of letting the pull dictate the expansion into those different areas. Now we're going to talk about not analyzing data early and the impact of that. So for the first year and a half of operating my kids enrichment business, I was making growth decisions just based on my gut instinct. And when that came to what schools to pursue, what programs to offer, what pricing to set, I had data sitting in spreadsheets, but I was not looking at it often and systematically. What that cost me, we ran programs at sites that were consistently underperforming. And I may have had a bit of a scarcity mindset there, or just a fear of maybe some people pleasing there as well. I didn't want to disappoint when a partner said, oh, we're looking forward to having you back. And I'm thinking, but enrollment is always a struggle to meet. We have to do a lot of work just to get that. I don't know. So that was hard for me. We offered program types at times and location where it didn't resonate with the community. We would have ideas. People would give us ideas around, oh, you should have programs for homeschool students. Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And so we would offer those programs and one person would register. So it sounded good. Maybe a homeschool parent gave us an idea, or a manager from a Parks and Recreation department. Yeah, you should try this. And we would try it, or you should try after school programs here during the week. Okay, let's give it a go. And continuously, term over term, the outcome would be that the programs really struggled. And we also set prices in ways that left money on the table at some sites and were too high for others. All of that equates to lost revenue and time being wasted. So here, the lesson is that your data already knows what works for you. You just have to ask it. Specifically, you can ask Claude, you can ask GPT to analyze your enrollment trends and the patterns. When I finally sat down and analyzed our enrollment trends were pretty obvious. Certain programs perform drastically better in certain communities, certain days and times consistently filled, while others consistently underperformed. Certain venue types, certain school sizes, even school cultures were predictable indicators of success. What I would do differently is from month one, from as soon as I started operating, I would track every single program, simple spreadsheet, simple set of fields with the site name, the venue type, the program type, the day, the time, the price per student, the enrollment count, the capacity, zip code, the communication, what types of communication they use to get information out to the community. Did they use social media? How active was it? I would use I would have as many fields as possible to describe these sites and these types of programs. Then every quarter, at least every term, I would run all of that through an AI, upload that spreadsheet and prompt the AI with the questions asking, what are the traits of my top performing programs? What do my bottom performers have in common? And where are the opportunities that I'm missing? And so what I would do the same here is I would trust the data, but I will also trust my relationships. Data will tell you where to look, but relationships will tell you whether it will work. And both of those matter. Mistake number 3 is not having robust training before hiring. So I know that there's a lot of angst in the community with hiring and hiring instructors. Most of us start off, we teach our programs ourselves. We have that passion for it. Most of us, before professionalizing our businesses, we had a passion for doing whatever it is that we are now offering. We have a lot of experience, a lot of passion, and we teach our programs at a really high level. And it can be really anxiety inducing and stressful to onboard and hire someone else to teach our programs. And yes, no one will teach it like you, but sometimes you may find people who teach things better than you, depending on who you hire. Those who may not teach it as well as you, they can still do an excellent job, and they could even have their own strengths that kids might relate to even more or learn from even better. The difference between having instructors, staff members that perform well and others that don't, it starts with your training process. In the early days, we had instructors and we put them in classrooms quicker than our training could support. We controlled for this by hiring instructors that had experience working with children, large groups of children, in at least a semi-educational setting, which is right to filter for, and I would recommend that. But we didn't have a structured onboarding process that prepared for them for our specific programs, our specific partnerships, and our specific expectations. So what it cost. A story here is one of our earliest instructors that I hired personally was very wonderful with children. She was very sweet. She's very caring. She genuinely loved the work. She genuinely loved learning the curriculum and working with children. She was naturally very quiet. We taught her the teacher voice technique from Teach Like a Champion. Of course, my background in schools, I'm always going to go to Teach Like a Champion for those tips and tricks. So that's a recommendation for you all if you were teaching student management and engagement to your team. There's wonderful strategies there, but one is to use a teacher voice, which children should be able to hear you from. If you're at the front of the class, they should be able to hear you in the back of the classroom with ease. They should not have to struggle to hear you. They cannot follow an instruction that they cannot hear. So they need you to have a voice that adequately projects. And that is especially important if you are in an environment where kids are in the middle of creating something. If you're teaching guitar and 5 kids are strumming and you have to quickly get all of their attention, your voice has to rise above the level of the guitars, or you have to have some signal to get them to be silent for a moment so that then you can speak and still they can all hear you. So we worked on her with her teacher voice, and it was still barely above conversational volume. She felt that she was yelling when she used a teacher voice. The kids continued to talk over her. And this is a pattern that you want to interrupt early because it's a learned behavior. As children learn to tune out your voice, it then becomes hard for them to register it in the future. So we want to establish, hey, when I begin speaking, the group stops. And I recommend doing that through attention signals, whatever that may be. For you all, it may be a sound, it may be a clap, it may be a call and response chant, but something to immediately stop the action that's happening and for everyone to stop and pay attention to whoever their teacher is at the moment. The school's expectation for this program that the instructor was teaching was for students to be very quiet. They had the same expectations for enrichment programs. And this is something that you'll want to know early. What is the culture of whatever partner you're working with? Do they like the camps or the lessons or whatever? How contained do they like the energy to be? What voice levels are they comfortable with? What spaces are they okay with the kids being in? What else do they have going on at that time of day? Because what we did not know is that there were staff meetings happening in the next classroom while these programs were going on, and the noise level above of like a whisper would interrupt the staff meetings. At a certain time, the office staff let me know, hey, the kids' voice levels are too loud. So I went in and coached our instructor, and it got better. I checked in with school. Yes, it's gone great. But then at the end of the term, they chose not to renew. And this was our only partner that had done that. So lesson was learned after, but it still cost us that partnership early on. By the time that they had brought that to my attention, I think they were over it. And although it was improved, they would just rather not deal with the possibility of the voice levels interrupting their very important staff meetings moving forward. So sometimes partners will give us a second chance, and sometimes they won't. And it's important for us to just go in knowing that both things are possible. So we really want to get it right as much as possible. And the same is true with the kids' experiences of our programs and the parent experience. We want to get it right because these are really like high stakes interactions that we're having, and we don't always get that additional opportunity. So that was the lesson learned. This was not her fault. I should have continued to coach her and also checked in more proactively with the partner. I did not have a robust system yet. So the lesson learned is that that was a training failure and then an ongoing support failure. She didn't know what the school expected because we didn't prepare her for that. She didn't know that schools have wildly different expectations for enrichment programs. Some love the kids to just have fun. It's after school. And if they are loud while they are learning and engaged and safe at the same time, and they're just so happy and laughing, they love to hear that. They love that energy when they see the children just so full of joy. And others, that is not the case. Preparation via communication does need to occur for our instructors to be successful. And these expectations and different cultures, that needs to be documented somewhere, and that does need to be part of the onboarding process. So what I would do differently is I would not hire a single instructor until I had written an onboarding checklist, a clear set of expectations by partnership type, until I had had an onboarding process where at least one co-teaching session, formal observations had occurred where every single behavior I needed to be at a satisfactory/excellent level had been shown. I wouldn't hire someone until I had those processes in place. And now I have them, and they've been refined over time, and they're very effective. Our instructors don't have those experiences anymore because the system has a floor of robust training and preparation. Also, in episode 2, we are going to go deeper into the instructor problem, the hiring, the training, the retention, everything. But this mistake, not having robust training in place before I started hiring, is the one that still stings just because it was so preventable. An ounce of Preparation is worth a pound of cure. That saying exists for a reason. And this is exactly why I believe so strongly in a resource that we are currently building. It's called the support line. So your instructors, they are going to hit moments where they're not trained for what to do. A student may have a behavior challenge, there may be a safety concern, there may be a parent communication or interaction that needs to happen around something that is uncomfortable and maybe a little bit contentious. A school expectation may be there that they did not know existed. All of these things can happen and will happen, especially around engagement and behavior with children. That is by and far the biggest reason that new teachers quit the profession and instructors in enrichment quit. So just so we all are clear on that, having robust and adequate and excellent onboarding is key. But what is even more important for keeping our fantastic instructors over time and not having that turnover at such a high rate is adequate, safe support. And safe support for them means working with a mentor who is experienced in all that they may experience themselves in their role. However, this person is not a direct or indirect supervisor. So they need to be able to be supported by someone who is not a supervisor, someone who does not have hiring or firing authority or is closely on a team or in close communication, proximity with the person with hiring or firing capacity. We naturally feel that, and that makes the vulnerability that comes with the sharing and the asking for support and help, that makes that feel unsafe. So we as enrichment operators and entrepreneurs should really think through what are the mentorship opportunities that instructors have that feel safe for them. So that's why I'm building an answer to that. It's called the support line. In the moment, instructors need someone to call who is not you, who's not their supervisor, and who has been in the room and knows what to do. When they have that support, more instructors persist, we have less turnover, and our operations are better functioning, less chaotic. Our instructors get better and better with time, and everyone wins. Our kids get better outcomes, and it just goes so much better for us. Mistake number 4 I made is not professionalizing my workforce early enough. Early on, I kept instructors as contractors because it was simpler, it was cheaper. I think a lot of people in the kids enrichment space start off with contractors, and that's a starting point, but that is not the end point. That's not a professionalized business. So if you set their schedules, you tell your staff, your instructors where to go, and you require them to teach using your methods, your curriculum, they are functionally employees in every way except on paper if you have them working for you as a contractor. So I just want to be clear about that. And this is something I learned after speaking with my lawyer that creates a legal exposure and a financial risk. And honestly, it costs the instructors too. As a possible solopreneur just getting started, you may not know everything there is to know about having employees, but as soon as you have others working for you, that's not really an excuse to not learn and do the right thing. If your instructors are working for you as employees, they don't get to choose how they fulfill the duties of their role. They don't get to choose when they'll work, who they'll work for. If they can't work for a competitor of yours doing the same thing, that sounds like an employee to me. Check with your own legal support there. And also check with the IRS because there are differences. The difference is more than just, oh, you file your taxes on your own if you're a contractor and you have to save away some of what I pay you to do that, or I do it for you. No, they're employer paid payroll taxes that you have to pay the government for having the privilege of having employees. So that is something that needs to be considered. And it doesn't matter if we pay instructors, many of us for our programs, instead of paying per hour, we will pay per session taught. That doesn't make someone a contractor versus being an employee for you. So check with your accountant, check with your legal advisory team, your lawyer, check with those people around where you're at with that. If you do have contractors, and know that contractors don't accrue paid time off. Contractors aren't eligible for, if you have a 401k plan, maybe for yourself as an employee. Well, it's mandatory that all employees are eligible to participate in a 401k plan if it's offered through their employer. And there may be different requirements that they have to meet, that you, in alignment with IRS policy, can set for if they're a part-time employee versus being a full-time employee, but they should at some point be eligible in their employment for you for participation in those benefits, such as a retirement plan. They should have PTO as is aligned with the minimum requirements at the very least, federally and legally in your state. So you want to check what are the mandatory requirements for that as well. And it also helps them to not have to save on their side for filing their taxes annually and then getting a big bill after working so hard for you. They will have had their taxes withheld according to their specific situation as they fill out their tax documents when you hire them. And that's done for them as is done in any other job that they've had and will have. So what I would do differently is I would professionalize earlier. Even though it cuts into profits, that is the cost of doing business. Proper payroll, withholding, PTO accrual, benefit eligibility. So this is the cost of doing business, and it communicates something to your team that you are a real employer, not a gig, some company that they can invest in for the longer term. So if you're seeing higher turnover than even is normal in the youth enrichment space, maybe you're connected to your peers and you have even more turnover, that could be a correlation between the types of instructor you have working for you, designated as a contractor, versus your peers who are professionalized and operate from the proper employer-employee dynamic for their roles. And what I would do the same here is I would talk to a tax professional. I have an accountant and an employment attorney. Before scaling, I would talk to those people and make sure I adequately understood the relationship between the business and a contractor and the business and an employee, and make sure that everyone was categorized appropriately from day one. 1 hour with the right advisor is worth 100 hours of Googling or checking with the GPT. My lawyer said she uses GPT, but there are some things that it can get wrong. So it's good to an extent, but it's not perfect, and it doesn't know as much as an attorney that knows specifically business law and employment law in your state. So I definitely recommend checking in with them. And it's good to build those relationships early anyway, because you want to have those professional relationships before you need them when something bad happens. So there is also a piece of advice there. Make sure you have the structures in place before you build your team up, because we want to do right by people at all times. And of course, we're not perfect. Sometimes we learn along the way, but we want to be on the right side of things. The next mistake, number 5, is not connecting with other operators in the kids enrichment space early. So for 2.5 years, I ran this business in isolation. I thought the struggles that I had were unique to me, and I thought my scheduling process was dysfunctional because I was using a spreadsheet instead of some other platform. I had tried other platforms, they did not work for my needs. So I thought my enrollment numbers were low because I was doing something wrong in certain programs. I thought that the constant hiring was a sign that I was failing at retention, that I was missing something. What that cost me was time, confidence, money. There were very real opportunity costs here. I spent months trying to find a scheduling platform, met my needs, trying and abandoning tool after tool, feeling like I was missing something. And then when I finally connected to operators who have been in the space for decades and I asked them how they did it, they said a spreadsheet. Then they gave me a list of other platforms that they used, those that didn't work, most didn't. And I realized that this wasn't a bug of the business, this is a feature. So every business has its things. No business is a perfect business. No type of business is a perfect business. So some have features that are just the difficulties of being in that type of business, no matter who you are, no matter how efficient you are. Some things may be a bug, where you're just doing something that's wrong and that other people, if through efficiencies, they don't have those issues. So that's a bug. And it's important to know what is what. So if there is a tool or resource or process available that could remedy an issue I'm having with my specific type of business that others are using and I'm not, then that's on me. That's not a feature of this is just something that's hard with a kids enrichment business. So when you calibrate with other people, you can see more quickly whether something is a unique mistake that you are making or if it's a feature of this type of business. And that distinction matters enormously for your mental health and your decision making. You can stop wasting your time quicker trying to fix things that are not broken. You can start fixing things that actually are. You can fix those things that you, with the right information, can drastically improve. A real example from the community, when I spoke to another enrichment entrepreneur, and one of the first conversations I had with another operator, within the first 10 minutes, we discovered that the same institution that had partnered with both of us was paying us different by our per student rates. This institution had told each of us that we were receiving the highest rate that they could give a kids enrichment provider. So they subcontract with us, they collect money, and then they pay us out at a certain rate. And we thought we were both getting the highest because that's what we had been told. When they asked me, hey, what do you get paid? I told them my rate. And they said, wow, that is much higher than what we're getting paid per student. And this operator had been a partner with the institution for more than 10 years longer than we had been a partner. And each year they were told that they had been given the highest rate. And just in one conversation, they learned that wasn't the case. So that was an information asymmetry that benefited the organization and that did not benefit the operator. And all of this in one conversation, one comparison, that was worth thousands of dollars per year for this operator because now they have that information. And it only happened because we talked to one another. I have another operator that I spoke to about camps and how they work with different venues. And we had gone one route with a certain type of partner, and they chose to run their own independent summer camps and they would rent facilities instead of what we had done. For the most part, we worked with parks and recreation departments. And so I hadn't really considered another way of doing summer camps. We sometimes did summer camps with different types of partners, but by and large, we stuck with that. And they, for the most part, did their own independently run camps. They rented out facilities in different communities and they loved it that way. I really thought differently after that. It made me think, wow, I had not even considered running our own independent programs without a partner sponsoring or partnering with us. It makes sense. So just those types of quick conversations, something can be said really quick in passing, and it really changes your strategy or what you think is possible just based on that. You can leverage 20 years of someone else's trial and error in 2 minutes with the right question asked. What I would do earlier is I would connect with more people in this space earlier and more often. I always try to make sure that I'm of service to other people. How can I help them out? What information can I offer them? What introductions can I make on their behalf to make sure that I'm pouring into others just as much as they are pouring into me, just as much as I'm gaining? I want to make sure that I'm giving more than I'm asking for others. And you can do that even as the newer, smaller operator in the space. And just asking, how can I help you? How can I be of service to you? What are you currently working on? What are your challenges? And even if you don't have an opportunity to help them with that challenge right now, you can always write that down. I have a list of people in my space and I have a column that says, how can I help them? And I don't always have a way that right now I have the idea, but if I just know of the challenges that they're having or that they're coming up against soon, and I write it down, then I can look at that list over time and maybe at the right time, I do have a resource that applies to them and I can reach back. Just having that information handy is a tip that I would recommend. And so What I would do the same is start this podcast. What I would do differently, I would have started sooner. I would still build this community because that is exactly what I wish I had and what I wish existed when I started. Mistake number 6 is the preparation gap. So, what I would do the same and what scares me for others, let's get into that. Let me tell you what I would do exactly the same. I would bring my background. I'm a licensed principal. I'm a licensed teacher. I have a master's and a doctorate in education. I have 8 years of experience as a principal, and I have a decade of formal educational leadership. I would bring that. I have robust training in child development and classroom management and safety protocols and all legal mandatory reporting training certifications. I have all those things. And when I started Journey to STEAM, I knew what I was walking into. I knew that preparation is the reason I never had a safety incident. I never had a compliance failure, and I've never been in legal jeopardy. But what scares me for others is that if I did not have the background and the preparation that I had, which most enrichment entrepreneurs do not, I would be terrified to start a kids enrichment business. The stakes are so high. We are talking about children here. There is no certifying training entity for what we do. There's no required training, no required licensing body. This is a huge gray area in the care for children, and we're in the wild west of it. And it's really an uncomfortable reality, especially for me as a parent, to know that there is so little preparation, checks and balances for adults taking care of children for extended periods of time in this specific way, in an enrichment way, versus other ways to take care of children. Here are examples. So think about what it takes to run a daycare in this country. You have to have state licensing. You have to have background checks for every staff member. You have to submit proof of those things. You have to show compliance with staff to child ratios, and those are enforced by the law. Health and safety inspections are conducted. Ongoing professional development is required. Mandated reporter training, first aid and CPR training, food handler certification if you serve food, fire safety compliance, natural disaster and emergency preparedness and preparation compliance, all of those things. That's just the beginning. Now think about what it takes to run a youth enrichment program. In most states, nothing. Federally, nothing. You get a business license to run a business. You may buy some materials, and then you're in a room with as many children as you register. Wow, that's a lot. So this gray area it's very dangerous for all involved. We are working with children, and the stakes could not be higher. One incident, one failure to report, one safety lapse, you are not just losing a school contract or a customer. You could be losing your business, your reputation, your freedom. In Oregon and in most states, anyone working with minors in a professional capacity is a mandated reporter. This means that you are legally required to report suspected abuse or neglect. And it's not always obvious, especially in the case of neglect. It doesn't always include bruises. A child who is consistently unclean, hungry, or unsupervised outside of your program, those are signs of behaviors that you're mandated to report. A child who says something in passing that doesn't sit right, how do you know what to do in that moment? Do your staff members or instructors know what to do in that moment? And if the answer is no, then that's not just a training gap, that's a huge legal liability. The failure to report carries criminal penalties in most states, and up to and including penalties similar to those imposed on abusers themselves. So here's an even more basic one. Have you ever brought pizza to a program, to one of your groups, a snack for a camp? If you've served food to children in your programs, in most states, you need to have an active food handler's card. And if you did not know that, you're in good company because most enrichment operators don't know that. And this is why that training matters. This is why certification matters. And this is why I'm so passionate about what is coming to this space. We're partnering with a certified youth enrichment professional training program to deliver our first industry standard onboarding certification for enrichment instructors. One training that covers safety, compliance, behavior management, professional standards specific to the out of school enrichment context. Because our instructors are educators, they have been working in informal learning environments, but they are educators and they deserve training that reflects that. These are just the mistakes from my own first 2 years, and I'm still learning. I'll still mess things up, and when I do, I'll come back and tell you about it and what lessons I've learned from there. But here's the thing, every one of these mistakes was compounded by isolation. I made pricing mistakes because I had no benchmarks. I made hiring mistakes because I had no playbook. I made growth mistakes because I had no one there to tell me to slow down or what was the best way to grow. And I made training mistakes because the training infrastructure for our industry simply does not exist. And so that is what we're changing together.